Hey guys, have you ever wondered what it would really feel like to wake up in the Wild West? Not the polished movie version, but the raw, unfiltered frontier. Tonight, we're going to explore why you might not survive even a single day in the untamed American frontier. Before we start, likes and subscribes help me keep making these. Where are you listening from? Drop your city and time in the comments. I'm always reading them, thinking, wait, people in England listen to history stories to sleep. Okay, tonight it's about the Wild West. But before we go anywhere, get cozy. Like, actually cozy. Pillows good. Blanket situation handled. Perfect. Trust me on this one. You open your eyes to the dim light of dawn, filtering through cracks in a wooden wall. The air smells of dust, animal hide, and smoke. Your bed is little more than a straw mattress, crawling with unseen company, fleas, bedbugs, and the faint itch of reality. Outside, a rooster cries into the cold, dry air, announcing another day that won't be kind. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the American Wild West of around 1875. The fire went out hours ago, and the air bites your skin. You see your breath, fog in front of you, curling into the morning chill. You pull on stiff boots that haven't known polish in years, and your muscles protest. Bathing is a fantasy. Out here, water is for drinking, not washing. The frontier smells of sweat, smoke, and survival. When you step outside, the world feels both endless and small. A pale sun rises over rolling plains. The horizon stretches so far, it almost swallows you whole. The land is beautiful, brutally so. Its silence has weight. Breakfast is a luxury of habit more than taste. Cold biscuits, weak coffee, maybe a slice of salted pork. It's fuel, not flavor. You sip from a tin cup and taste iron and ash. In town, the dirt road stirs with the sound of boots, horses, and hammers. The air is alive with dust. Every building leans slightly, built faster than it should have been. The saloon door swings, releasing laughter and tobacco smoke into the wind. Violence simmers beneath the surface, one insult away from chaos. A man walks past, his revolver glinting in the sun. Everyone here carries one, not out of pride, but necessity. Law is an idea, not a presence. You glance toward the horizon again, the dry wind scraping across the plains, and realize, in the Wild West, survival isn't an adventure. It's a slow negotiation with a land that doesn't care if you make it to nightfall. Did you eat enough to survive yesterday? Out here, that's not a casual question. It's a matter of endurance. In the Wild West, hunger follows everyone like a shadow. You wake before dawn to the sound of boots thudding on dirt and the low moan of the wind pushing against the cabin. Your stomach already aches. Breakfast is the same as always. Beans, hard biscuits, bitter coffee that's been boiled too long. You swallow it anyway, because there's work to do. There's always work to do. The air outside is sharp and dry. You can taste dust before you even speak. The first chore of the day is water, hauling it from the nearest well or creek. A half-mile away, the bucket is heavy, and each trip burns through your energy before the sun even rises. If you're a farmer, the land feels more like an enemy than a partner. The soil is hard, the wind cruel. You plow from sunrise to sunset, and the handle blisters your palms until they bleed. The work doesn't end when the field is done. Fences need mending, firewood needs chopping, animals need feeding. Your body is your only tool, and it's already wearing down. You pause only long enough to wipe sweat from your face with a sleeve streaked in dirt. The world smells of iron and effort, of sweat, wood, and manure. For miners, it's darker still. The earth swallows you whole. You spend 12 hours underground breathing dust that turns your lungs to stone. Men come out coughing blood and call it just another day. By midday, the heat presses on you like a living thing. Shade is rare. So is rest. Lunch is yesterday's leftovers, eaten standing up. As evening comes, your back feels carved from stone, and your hands tremble when you try to lift the water bucket again. You look toward the horizon, that endless line of orange and gold, and realize that the frontier doesn't reward strength. It consumes it. Tomorrow, the same work waits. The West doesn't care how tired you are. It just expects you to wake up and start again. When was the last time you drank clean water without thinking about it? Out here, that luxury could save, or end, your life. The sun hasn't fully risen yet, but the heat is already climbing. The air feels brittle, the kind that cracks your lips and dries your throat before the morning's work even begins. You reach for the water barrel near your cabin, but it's nearly empty again. What's left has gone cloudy with silt, and a thin film shimmers on the surface. You stare at it for a moment, then drink anyway. There's no other choice. On the frontier, every drop of water is earned. Wells run dry without warning. Streams shift course or turn bitter with alkali. When it rains, buckets and barrels appear outside every cabin, catching what little relief the sky offers. People learn to ration, not just food, but thirst. And when the water's bad, sickness follows. The town doctor, if there is one, can do little more than guess. Typhoid, dysentery, and cholera move silently from one house to another. Sometimes a single cup of contaminated water can wipe out an entire family in a week. You step outside and hear coughing from the neighbor's cabin. It's the deep, hollow kind that doesn't stop. The smell of sickness drifts through the air, a mix of sweat, dirt, and despair. In towns without sewage or understanding of germs, disease spreads faster than gossip. You remember the last time you saw the undertaker. He didn't wear black like the ones in the movies, just a dusty shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow, his hands rough from building more coffins than he could sell. Out here, death isn't traumatic. It's expected. By midday, you feel the sun pounding on your skull. You take another sip from your tin cup, knowing it might make you sick, but knowing thirst will kill you faster. The land stretches out before you, dry, silent, endless. You understand now why the settlers called this place God's country. It's not because it was kind or forgiving. It's because surviving here meant putting your faith in something bigger than luck and hoping that for one more day it would be enough. The road west isn't a road at all. It's a scar carved into the earth by countless wagon wheels and hoofprints. You set out before sunrise, your horse's breath steaming in the cold. The saddle is stiff, the leather cracked, and every jolt rattles through your bones. The wind cuts across the plains, carrying with it the scent of dust and dry grass. Traveling the frontier isn't about distance, it's about endurance. A single day's journey can feel endless. You keep your eyes on the horizon, but it never seems to move. Each hour brings new hazards. Snakes sunning themselves on the trail, hidden ruts that could snap a wagon axle, and the eerie silence that follows when something unseen is watching from the brush. If you're lucky, you'll find a stream by noon. Your horse drinks deeply, and you refill your canteen, though the water's taste is faintly metallic. As you rest, The silence of the plains presses in. No sound but wind, no comfort but movement. You understand why travelers sang to themselves, to remind the land they were still alive. By afternoon, the sun burns overhead, your throat aches, your skin stings, and even the air feels sharp to breathe. You pass a wagon abandoned by its owners. The wheels are broken, the canvas torn, a child's shoe half buried in dust. You don't stop. Out here, stopping can mean dying. When evening finally comes, the sky erupts in gold and crimson. You find a patch of grass and set camp, too tired to eat, too sore to speak. The fire crackles low, the stars bloom in impossible numbers, and for a moment, the world feels peaceful until the coyotes start to howl. You roll your blanket tight, hand resting near your revolver, and stare into the fire's last glow. Tomorrow you'll ride again, because the West doesn't wait for the weary. It never did. The night in the Wild West is never truly silent. Even when the wind dies, the world hums with small, uneasy sounds. The creak of wood, the shuffle of animals, the far-off cry of something hungry. You sit beside your fading campfire, wrapped in a blanket that smells of smoke and sweat, eyes fixed on the horizon that's gone black. Sleep tempts you, but not enough to trust it. Out here, darkness belongs to things that move unseen. Coyotes prowl at the edge of the firelight. Owls glide overhead, silent as breath. Sometimes, if you listen closely, you can hear the faint echo of hoofbeats, a rider passing through, or worse, a group that doesn't want to be noticed. You keep your revolver close, the cold metal, a small comfort against the vast emptiness. The fire pops, sending sparks into the air. For a moment, you think you see something move beyond the light's reach, a shape, a shadow, but when you blink, it's gone. The prairie plays tricks on tired eyes. Hours stretch like rope. You feed the fire one small log at a time, careful not to waste fuel. The stars above you shimmer like frost. They're the same ones you know from home. But out here, they feel heavier, older, indifferent. Somewhere nearby, your horse snorts and stamps the ground. Uneasy, you rise, scanning the dark. The only sound is your own heartbeat, loud in your ears. After a long moment, you sit back down, the tension fading, but never leaving entirely. By dawn, the fire has burned to ash. The world lightens, pale and cold. You've made it through another night, without sleep, without comfort, and without certainty. You pack your things, stretch your aching limbs, and saddle your horse once more. In the distance, the land glows gold beneath the rising sun. Vast and unforgiving, you realize something simple and terrible. The Wild West doesn't just test your body, it tests your nerves, your trust, your will to keep watch, even when nothing moves. Because out here, the moment you stop watching, something always does. By midday, the horizon breaks into shape. A few crooked buildings rising from the dust like weary sentinels. You've reached the town, though calling it that feels generous. A main street runs through the center, a strip of hard-packed earth scattered with wagon ruts and hoofprints. Wooden signs hang crooked, paint faded by wind and sun. The first thing you notice is the smell. Smoke, manure, whiskey, and something metallic beneath it all. The kind of scent that never truly leaves your clothes. Horses snort as you pass, their ribs showing through dull hides. A dog barks once and disappears behind a porch. The saloon is the loudest place in town. Swinging doors flap open, releasing music, laughter, and the sharp scent of cheap liquor. Inside, the air is thick with cigar smoke and tension. Men lean over cards and money, their voices low, their eyes quick. A single insult can turn the whole room violent in seconds. You keep your head down. Next door, the general store offers a kind of comfort, shelves lined with tins, nails, and dusty jars. You buy coffee grounds, salt, and a strip of jerky that's tougher than leather. Each item costs more than it should. Out here, scarcity dictates the price. Across the street, a barber sharpens his blade under a porch awning. Beside him, a poster flaps in the wind. Wanted, $200 reward. The face on it could be anyone, maybe even someone sitting inside the saloon right now. Children chase a rolling hoop down the street. A woman fills a bucket at the well, eyes wary, posture stiff. Everyone here watches everyone else. Trust is a luxury the frontier can't afford. As the sun lowers, long shadows stretch across the street. A church bell rings somewhere in the distance, a thin sound carried by wind. You realize that towns like this don't feel alive. They feel suspended, waiting for something to happen. And when it does, it usually isn't good. Evening settles over town like a slow exhale. The air cools, dust softens, and lamps begin to glow behind frosted windows. You find yourself standing outside the saloon again, drawn by the murmur of voices, the scrape of chairs, the faint, familiar melody of a piano that's missing half its keys. Inside, the light is amber and uneven. Men crowd around the tables, their laughter sharp and brittle. Cards slap wood, coins clink, and boots shift restlessly on the warped floorboards. The smell of whiskey and tobacco sits heavy in the room. You order a drink and take a seat at the bar. The glass cloudy, the liquor harsh. That's when you notice him, the stranger in the corner. He's alone, hat tilted low, coat worn thin. One gloved hand rests near the revolver at his hip. The other cradles a drink he hasn't touched. He doesn't talk, doesn't move much, just watches. In a place like this, that kind of silence speaks louder than words. The piano stops. A chair scrapes. Two men argue over a card game gone bad. Voices rise, hands twitch near belts. The stranger doesn't flinch, neither do you. Out here, you learn that loud men die faster than quiet ones. The barkeep leans close, whispering just loud enough for you to hear. That man's been here 3 days. Says he's waiting for someone. Don't ask who. You nod, eyes still fixed on the reflection in your glass. The argument behind you ends with the dull crack of a fist, followed by laughter. The game resumes. The stranger finally stands, slow and deliberate, drops a coin on the counter, and walks out. When you step outside moments later, he's already gone, swallowed by the night, leaving only the faint sound of spurs fading into the dark. The moon hangs low over the town, silvering the rooftops. The street feels emptier than before. Though nothing has changed, you realize that in the Wild West, danger rarely announces itself. It just walks past you quietly and waits for the right time to turn around. Morning breaks with the clang of a bell and the low murmur of voices outside. You step onto the street and see a small crowd gathered by the jailhouse. The sheriff stands on the porch, broad-shouldered, sunburned, the kind of man who spent more years than he'll admit trying to hold order, together with worn hands and a short temper. In the West, law is less about justice and more about balance. The sheriff doesn't have deputies to spare or a courthouse to lean on. His badge isn't power, it's a warning. He keeps the peace by being the meanest man in town. when he has to be. Two men stand before him, faces bruised, eyes wild from a night's fight in the saloon. The sheriff listens just long enough to decide who threw the first punch, then drags them both inside. His word is final. No trial, no appeal. Justice here is quick, rough, and rarely fair. You hear the slam of the cell door and the creak of old hinges. The jail smells of sweat, smoke, and rusted iron. The sheriff keeps a rifle propped in the corner, its barrel polished clean. A single poster hangs behind his desk. Wanted, dead, or alive. And you can't help noticing there's more dust on the alive half. He catches your glance and says, "You stay out of trouble. You'll live longer." His voice carries no threat, just experience. You nod and step outside, back into the sunlight. The townsfolk disperse slowly. A few whisper about the stranger who passed through last night. Others about cattle gone missing. Out here, crime doesn't come with motive or mercy. It comes with opportunity. By afternoon, the town feels calm again. But you can sense the tension beneath it. A land this wide can't be fenced forever, and men this desperate can't stay patient long. As you walk away, you glance back at the sheriff's office, the single place in town that still tries to believe in rules. Out here, law isn't written in books. It's carved into memory, one bullet and one warning at a time. By midday, the heat lies thick over town, and the scent of sickness drifts faintly through the air. You follow it to a small building near the edge of the street. A crooked sign swinging above the door reads, "Doctor," hand-painted in letters that have started to fade. Inside, the air smells of alcohol, tobacco, and something sharper. Carbolic acid, maybe, or fear. The doctor is an older man, sleeves rolled to the elbow, spectacles sliding down his nose. His hands tremble slightly as he cleans a metal instrument with a cloth that doesn't look clean enough. He nods for you to sit, and you do, careful not to touch anything. The room is cluttered with bottles, saws, and bandages, all jumbled together in what he calls order. Medicine here is mostly courage and luck. A man on the cot beside you groans, his arm bound tight in a blood-stained sling. The doctor works without pause. No anesthesia, just whiskey and the will to survive. The patient bites down on leather as the wound is stitched, and the sound echoes in your bones. "You get hurt out here?" the doctor mutters. "You'd best not do it twice." His eyes flick toward the window, where sunlight filters through dusty glass. Can't fix what the land already broke. You ask how long he's been out here. He smiles faintly, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Too long to believe people come west for a better life," he says. "They come because there's nowhere else left to go." He hands you a small bottle of tonic, mostly alcohol, maybe a pinch of herbs. "For the road," he says. You thank him, though you're not sure what for. As you step outside, the light feels harsh again. You take a sip from the bottle, wincing at the burn. It doesn't heal anything, but for a moment, it dulls the noise in your mind. Behind you, the doctor closes his door. Tomorrow, he'll patch another wound, bury another patient, and keep pretending he's saving lives in a place that keeps trying to take them. The morning begins in silence, but it's the wrong kind of silence. The heavy kind that makes even the birds vanish. You step outside, and the air tastes strange, like metal and ash. On the far horizon, a dark line crawls upward, wide as the sky itself. You've lived out here long enough to know what that means. A dust storm is coming. By noon, the wind picks up. It starts as a whisper, brushing the grass in gentle waves. Then, all at once, it roars. The sky turns from blue to yellow, then brown, and the world begins to disappear. You pull your bandana over your mouth and tighten your hat, but it's useless. The air itself becomes the enemy. Dust fills everything. It grinds into your teeth, your eyes, your lungs. It stings like sandpaper and tastes like iron. The horses panic, straining against their ropes. Doors slam. People shout through scarves and sleeves, trying to secure windows that will still be useless against the storm's weight. You can't see more than a few feet ahead. The world has become a blur of movement and sound, a rushing chaos that feels alive. You find shelter in the corner of an old barn, crouching low as the boards groan and rattle. The wind howls like a living thing, pulling at the roof, shaking the ground beneath your boots. Time loses meaning. The storm doesn't end so much as it slows. Hours pass before the wind begins to ease, its voice fading to a dull whisper. When you finally step outside, the world has changed. The town looks buried. Dust drifts knee-deep in the streets, blanketing every roof, every window, every breath. The air is still thick, hazy, with the scent of scorched earth. Someone coughs nearby, a dry cracking sound that won't stop. You stand there, coated in grit, from head to toe, and realize something simple. The West doesn't just wear you down, it erases you slowly, the way wind smooths stone, grain by grain, breath by breath, until you're part of the dust that always comes back again. The dust hasn't settled for long before new trouble drifts into town. You can feel it before you see it. The way people stop talking mid-sentence, the way the saloon doors stay shut, the way even the dogs go quiet. Out here, silence is a warning. 3 riders appear on the ridge just after sundown, their silhouettes cut hard against the dim orange sky, long coats trailing behind them like flags of dust. They ride slow, not sneaking, but not hurrying either. The kind of confidence that only comes from men who know no one will stop them. By the time they reach Main Street, lamps are being snuffed out, one by one. You stand on the porch of the general store, hand resting on your belt, heart steady but alert. The leader dismounts, tall, lean, his eyes hidden beneath a brim worn low. The others fan out behind him, rifles glinting in the half-light. They don't speak at first. They don't have to. Everyone already knows who they are. The last time a group like this rode through, 2 men ended up dead before sunrise, and the sheriff still limps from the wound. The leader finally steps forward, boots grinding in the dirt. "We're just passing through," he says, his tone smooth, too calm. "But we'll be taking what we need." No one argues. Out here, law bends to the man with the steadiest hand and the emptiest conscience. The barkeep hands over the cash box. The store owner nods, pale as chalk. It's not cowardice. It's survival. As the riders move on, the town exhales, slow and shaky. A child starts crying somewhere behind a shuttered window. The sheriff appears at the edge of the street, rifle in hand, but unmoved. He knows better than to start a war. He can't win tonight. You watch the outlaws disappear into the desert dark, the sound of their horses fading into wind. For a long time, you keep staring at the horizon, wondering how far a man can run out here before the land, or his own shadow, catches up with him. 2 days' ride from town, the land begins to change. The grass thins to brittle stalks, the soil turns pale and cracked, and the wind grows hotter with every mile. You've entered the desert, the part of the frontier that swallows travelers whole and leaves nothing but bones behind. The sun rules here. It glares down without mercy, bleaching the horizon until sky and ground blur together. You ride slow to save your horse, stopping only when the air begins to shimmer. Each breath feels heavier than the last. Your canteen sloshes weakly when you shake it. You stop checking after a while. By noon, your mouth feels like sandpaper. The heat presses against your skull, and sweat dries before it can fall. The desert smells faintly of salt and dust, a lifeless scent that warns you how far you still have to go. You find a dry creek bed and follow it, hoping it will lead to water. It doesn't. Just more rock, more silence, more mirage. The land here is ancient and cruel, shaped by centuries of wind and indifference. The bones of cattle lie half buried in the sand, white, clean, picked dry long ago. When night finally comes, the world changes again. The heat vanishes, replaced by cold that bites through your clothes. You make a small fire, careful not to waste wood, and watch the stars bloom above you. Out here, they don't twinkle. They burn, hard and steady. The silence feels almost holy. You drink the last of your water, rationing it to a few small sips. The liquid is warm, metallic, but it might as well be gold. You close your eyes, letting the fire's glow blur into the darkness. In the distance, a coyote howls. The sound is long, mournful, and endless. You understand it more than you should. In this place, survival isn't about strength. It's about patience. The desert doesn't care who you are. It only asks how long you're willing to keep walking before you disappear into its quiet forever. The desert stretches endlessly behind you when you finally find company again. A small group of travelers gathered around a dying fire. They nod as you approach, the silent greeting of people who've been alone too long. No one asks who you are or where you came from. Out here, questions are currency, best spent sparingly. You sit beside the fire, feeling its heat against the chill of night. Someone passes you a tin cup filled with coffee that tastes more like soot than beans, but you drink it anyway. The flames crackle, throwing gold and shadow across tired faces. Each one carries the same hollow look, the mix of endurance and disbelief that comes from surviving another day. One man begins to talk, his voice rough but steady. He tells a story about a lost mine, buried deep in the mountains, where the walls are lined with gold. Another laughs softly and shakes his head. Every fool who's chased that legend ends up bones and dust, he says. The gold's real enough. It's just buried with the men who went looking. The group falls quiet again. The wind hums low through the sagebrush. Someone hums a tune, slow, off-key, the kind of melody that sounds older than memory itself. For a moment, the world feels still, almost gentle. Then a woman across the fire begins her tale about a storm that came without warning, swallowing half her wagon train. She speaks softly, staring into the flames, as if afraid the past might hear her. When she finishes, no one speaks. There's nothing left to say. You watch the embers collapse into glowing dust, their color fading to ash. Out here, every story sounds the same. Survival dressed up as luck. When you finally lie back beneath the open sky, the stars flicker like candlelight over an empty world. The fire crackles one last time before settling into silence. You realize that the West remembers everything. The wind, the bones, and every whispered story told beside its endless fire. By the third day of travel, you spot something on the horizon, shapes rising from the sand like the ribs of a giant. As you draw closer, the outline becomes clearer. Walls, rooftops, a water tower leaning at an angle, a town, or what's left of one. The sign at the entrance creaks in the wind, its letters half gone. You step past it and into silence. No footsteps, no animals, no sound but the dry hiss of dust sweeping across the ground. Doors hang loose on their hinges. Windows gape like open mouths. Inside the saloon, everything is frozen mid-moment. A few chairs knocked over, bottles still lined on the shelves, a single card lying face up on the floor. The ace of spades. You can almost hear the echoes of laughter. Piano keys, the shuffle of boots, long gone. You move through the town slowly, feeling the weight of all that emptiness. The church bell still hangs above its tower, rusted but whole. You ring it once, and the sound carries through the valley, eerie and hollow, as if the town itself were remembering its name. Ghost towns like this scatter the west. Abandoned mines, dry wells, dreams that ran out before the gold did, whole lives left behind because the earth refused to give more. In one house, you find a child's toy, a wooden horse with one wheel missing. Dust lies thick on it, but the paint still shows through. Faded blue, chipped red. You set it back where you found it. Some things deserve to rest. The sun sinks low, casting long shadows down the empty street. The place feels haunted, but not by spirits, by the stubbornness of memory. Every cracked wall and broken window whispers the same quiet truth. The West wasn't lost to time. It was surrendered to it. As you leave, the wind picks up again, carrying sand through the hollow buildings. You don't look back. Ghost towns don't like witnesses. They prefer silence. The next morning, a stagecoach rattles into view, dust billowing behind it like smoke from a distant fire. The driver shouts to his horses, leather reins snapping through the dry air. You flag him down, pay what little coin you have left, and climb aboard. The door slams shut, sealing you into the cramped wooden box that passes for travel out here. Inside, the air is thick with sweat, dust, and old perfume. 4 other passengers share the space, each with a story you'll never hear. A widow clutching a photograph, a preacher who smells faintly of whiskey, a miner asleep with his hat over his face, and a young woman staring out the window like she's afraid the horizon might vanish. The wheels jolt over stones and ruts, throwing everyone side to side. Outside, the landscape rolls by, dry plains stretching into forever, dotted with sagebrush and bones bleached white by the sun. The driver's whip cracks, echoing like thunder. Conversation is rare. Every few miles, someone coughs or shifts in their seat. The preacher mumbles a prayer under his breath. You close your eyes and let the rhythm of the road blur the edges of thought. The sound of wheels and hooves becomes almost hypnotic, steady as a heartbeat. Hours pass. Then, without warning, the coach slows. The horses snort, restless. The driver calls down, "Hold tight." You peek out the window and see why. 2 riders on the trail ahead, faces hidden, rifles resting across their saddles. No one speaks. The air grows thin. The driver nods once and veers the horses slightly off the main road. The riders don't follow, just watch, motionless, until you're far enough away. No one exhales until the sound of hooves fades behind you. The preacher finally mutters, "Mercy rides with the lucky." The widow crosses herself. By sunset, The coach rattles on again, swallowed by the dust. You lean your head against the wood and listen to the endless rhythm of the wheels. Each turn a reminder that in the Wild West, peace was never a promise. It was a pause between gunshots. The sun hangs low when you ride back into town. The air feels heavier than usual. Still and waiting, a small crowd gathers by the edge of the churchyard, hats in hand, faces drawn. You recognize the quiet before you hear the sound, the slow rhythm of shovels cutting through dry earth. Someone's being buried today. Out here, that's not rare. It's routine. Death doesn't need a reason. In the Wild West, it just arrives when the land decides it's time. You step closer. The coffin is plain pine, unpolished, nailed shut with the care of exhaustion rather than grief. A preacher stands at its head, voice low and cracked, as he reads from a torn Bible. The words drift upward, carried off by the wind before they can reach heaven. Around you, the townsfolk stand silent. A few whisper names, others don't bother. In a place where survival depends on distance, mourning is a private thing. You catch a glimpse of the sheriff at the back, hat over his heart. No one asks who's to blame. Sometimes no one knows. When the last handful of dirt falls, the sound is soft, but final. The preacher closes his book. One by one, the crowd disperses, boots scuffing against the ground. In minutes, life resumes. Someone laughing near the saloon, a hammer striking metal, a door creaking open. The world moves on without ceremony. You linger a little longer, watching the wind tug at the fresh mound of soil. A single wooden cross leans at its head, carved with just one word, friend. No first name, no last. Maybe that's all anyone gets here. A memory, a gesture, a few letters scratched into wood before the sun takes them away. You tip your hat and walk back toward town, the sound of your footsteps, the only prayer you can offer. In the distance, thunder rolls across the plains. Not a storm yet, just a warning. Out here, even the sky seems to grieve quietly, then carry on. 2 days later, you reach the river, the first real stretch of water you've seen in weeks. It moves slow and wide, brown with silt, sunlight flashing off its rippled surface. On the far bank lies another trail, another horizon, another uncertain mile of the west. But crossing won't be easy. The current looks calm from a distance, but up close, it whispers of danger, hidden roots, shifting sand, the kind of pull that can drag a man and his horse under without warning. You lead your animal to the edge. The smell of mud and algae thicken the heat. You test the depth with a stick. Too deep. The next crossing is 20 miles north, but the sky already threatens rain. You weigh your options, listening to the low rumble of thunder crawling closer. Out here, decisions don't wait for comfort. They demand instinct. You push forward. The water reaches your knees, then your waist. Your boots fill, growing heavy. The horse snorts, uneasy. Each step is slow, deliberate. The current tugging harder with every inch. The sound of rushing water fills your ears until it's all you can hear. Halfway through, something shifts beneath you. A sudden drop. The riverbed gives way. Cold water surging up to your chest. You grab the reins, steady yourself. Whisper calm words that vanish in the wind. For a moment, you think the river will take you. Then, with one final lunge, you reach the far bank and collapse onto the mud, gasping. The rain begins almost immediately. Fat drops hitting the ground like applause. You lie there for a while, feeling the water soak into your clothes, your skin, your bones. You're alive, but just barely. When the storm passes, you look back across the river. The far shore is already fading behind a curtain of mist. It's strange how something so vital can nearly kill you. Out here, the same river that saves your thirst will test your will to keep going. You stand, dripping and sore, and whisper to no one in particular, "Thank you," because in the Wild West, surviving the day is miracle enough. You hear the rumor first around a campfire, quiet voices, quick glances, the kind of talk that spreads faster than the wind itself. Someone struck gold in the foothills, a real vein this time, not just flakes in the pan. They say it glitters like sunlight in the dirt, waiting for anyone brave or foolish enough to claim it. By morning, the camp has emptied. Men who could barely lift a shovel the day before now charge toward the mountains with wild eyes and half a plan. You follow, not out of greed exactly, but curiosity, the kind that gets people lost out here. The trail winds upward through pine and stone, the air cooler but thinner. Every few miles, you pass another group, faces coated in dust, hands blistered raw from digging. They speak of luck like it's a living thing, something that chooses its favorites and punishes everyone else. By noon, you reach a small creek where half a dozen men crouch, pans swirling in the current. The water sparkles gold in the sunlight, but when you look closer, it's just mica, worthless fool's gold. Still, they keep panning, each convinced that the next scoop will change everything. You try once, more out of respect than hope. The water numbs your fingers. The dirt feels endless. When you lift the pan, it holds nothing but mud and reflection. For a moment, you see your face staring back, older, hungrier, no richer than before. Nearby, a man laughs, like he's gone mad, clutching a few yellow flecks in his palm. Others swarm to see. The fever catches fast. Shouts turn to arguments, arguments to fists, fists to gunfire. The echo rolls through the hills, sharp and final. When it fades, only the wind answers. By sunset, you ride away from the dig site, the sound of picks and shovels fading behind you. You realize the gold isn't what draws people here. It's the dream of it, the belief that maybe, just once, fortune will find them before the desert does. But the West doesn't give. It only lends, and always collects what it's owed. Night finds you again, miles from the nearest town. The air sharp with the chill of coming winter. The land feels emptier than usual. No firelight on the horizon. No sound but the slow groan of wind through the sagebrush. Then, in the distance, a flicker, a single lantern glowing through the trees. You follow the light, cautious but curious. It leads you to a cabin, small, weathered, leaning slightly, but still alive in its own way. Smoke curls from the chimney. You knock once, and a voice answers, low and wary. Doors open if you mean no harm. Inside, the warmth hits you first. A fire crackles in the hearth, casting long shadows across the room. Shelves line the walls. Dried herbs, tin plates, a few tools hung neatly in place. The man who owns it sits at the table, gray-bearded, eyes clear but distant. He offers coffee without asking your name. Out here, that's trust enough. You sip in silence for a while, the bitter drink cutting through the cold. Eventually, he speaks. Used to be 100 folks around here, he says. Farmers, hunters, dreamers. Then came drought. Then came hunger. Then came quiet. You ask why he stayed. He shrugs, staring into the fire. Somebody's gotta remember this place. Outside, the wind howls through the cracks. Inside, the silence between words feels heavier than the storm. You notice a second chair at the table, dusty, untouched. A small locket sits beside it, its clasp worn smooth. You don't ask about it. Some stories aren't meant to be told aloud. When you finally lie down on a cot by the wall, the fire's glow flickers against the ceiling like distant lightning. The man hums a tune so faint you almost miss it. Something old, maybe a lullaby from a life that's gone. Before sleep takes you, you think about what it means to stay when everything else leaves. Maybe the loneliest souls in the West weren't the ones lost to the desert. Maybe they were the ones who survived it and had no one left to tell. You wake to a silence so deep, it feels like the world has stopped breathing. The window is rimmed with frost, the glass fogged white. When you open the door, the cold hits like a fist, sharp, blinding, merciless. Snow whirls in thick sheets, carried sideways by the wind. The landscape you knew yesterday has vanished, buried beneath a shifting ocean of white. The man from the cabin is already outside, fighting the wind to tie down what's left of his firewood stack. His coat flaps wildly, his beard stiff with ice. You help him drag a few logs back inside, hands numb, breath burning your throat. The door slams shut behind you, muting the roar, but not the cold that seeps through every crack. He tosses a blanket your way. Storm's early, he says, voice flat. Could last a week if we're unlucky. The hours crawl by. The wind screams against the walls. The fire hisses and sputters, and the temperature keeps dropping. You feed the flames slowly, careful not to waste more wood than you can spare. The room fills with the scent of smoke and melting snow. Small reminder that warmth still exists somewhere. By nightfall, the storm grows worse. The cabin shudders. You can hear branches snapping outside, the groan of trees bending under weight they can't bear. The old man sits by the hearth, staring into the fire like he's trying to memorize it. Winters out here don't forgive, he says softly. They just wait to see who quits first. You nod, unable to reply. Words feel too fragile against the sound of nature tearing itself apart. When sleep finally comes, it's thin and restless. You dream of motionless plains, of silence so wide it swallows thought. Somewhere in that white expanse, a single figure walks on, head down, coat whipping in the wind. Because stopping means freezing. You wake in darkness, the fire low, your breath visible. The storm still rages outside, and for the first time since you came west, you understand what real quiet is. Not the absence of sound, but the space where even the earth holds its breath. When morning finally comes, it doesn't look like morning at all. The world outside glows, pale and strange, light bending off a blanket of snow that swallows everything. The wind has gone, leaving behind a silence too clean to trust. You step out carefully, boots sinking deep into the powder. The air bites at your lungs, sharp and thin. The cabin looks half buried, its roof draped in ice, the chimney still puffing thin ribbons of smoke. Around it, the land lies transformed. Fences vanished, trails erased, trees snapped like bones. It's hard to tell where earth ends and sky begins. The world feels weightless and cruel at once. You spot the old man, standing a few paces off, shovel in hand, face turned toward the horizon. He doesn't move for a long while, just studies the landscape like he's counting ghosts. When he finally speaks, His voice is quiet. Every storm takes something, he says. Sometimes it's wood. Sometimes it's a roof. Sometimes it's people. You nod, unsure which one it's taken this time. Together, you dig a narrow path through the drifts. Slow work in the freezing air. The snow squeaks underfoot, soft but endless. By noon, the sun breaks through the clouds. Its light sharp enough to make you squint. The cold doesn't fade. It just hides under the glare. From the ridge above, you can see how far the storm reached. Miles of empty white. The outlines of wagons and fences poking through like bones in shallow graves. The silence is beautiful, almost holy, until you remember what's buried beneath it. Back inside, the fire burns again. The old man pours what's left of the coffee. Thin, bitter, but warm. You drink slowly, staring at the flames. There's no talk of leaving yet. The roads are gone, and the world beyond is still frozen. He breaks the quiet, only once. Funny thing, he murmurs. The snow looks peaceful, till you remember it kills slower than bullets. You say nothing. You just listen to the pop of the fire and the faint drip of melting ice. Proof that, for now, the world is still thawing, one drop at a time. 3 days after the storm, the snow begins to soften. Meltwater trickles down the hills in thin, silver streams, whispering life back into the silence. The old man gives you a nod and a small sack of jerky before you saddle your horse. Town's that way, he says, pointing west. If it's still standing, you thank him, though words feel small compared to what he gave you. Shelter, warmth, another sunrise. Then you ride out, hooves crunching through the snow-crusted ground. The air is clearer now, sharper, and the sky stretches vast and pale above the whitened earth. The road is barely visible, swallowed by drifts and thaw. You navigate by instinct, following the faint curve of land and the ghostly line of fence posts half buried along the trail. The world smells clean again, like pine, smoke, and cold iron. By midday, you spot the town. It looks smaller than you remember, huddled beneath the weight of winter. Roofs sag under snow, chimneys smoke weakly, and the streets are empty except for a few figures moving slow, heads low against the wind. You pass the saloon first. Its doors hang crooked, one hinge broken. Inside, the piano lies silent, keys covered in dust and frost. The sheriff's office still stands, though its windows are boarded, and the sound of a hammer rings somewhere in the back. He's rebuilding, one nail at a time. At the edge of town, you stop by the churchyard. The graves are nearly hidden under snow, their wooden crosses leaning. You brush one clean, the same one you saw weeks ago. Friend. The letters are faded now, but still there. You leave a coin pressed into the snow, a small gesture to prove someone remembered. As dusk falls, lanterns flicker to life along the street, and for a moment, the town looks alive again. Smoke curls upward, soft and gold in the fading light. You stand there a long time, watching. The West doesn't rebuild quickly, but it always rebuilds. Not out of hope, but habit. Out here, survival isn't about forgetting the storm. It's about learning to keep a fire lit long enough to see what's left when it ends. You hear it before you see it. A sound too smooth, too modern for a place like this. A low, mournful whistle drifting across the plains. It cuts through the air like a memory of another world. The railroad has finally reached town. By mid-morning, the train rolls in. Black, iron, and steam. A beast of noise and motion. The ground trembles beneath your boots as it grinds to a halt. Townsfolk gather near the tracks, some in awe, others in quiet suspicion. For years, this place was the end of the road. Now, it's just another stop. Men in suits step down from the cars, their boots too clean for this soil. They speak fast, smile wide, and measure everything with their eyes. The land, the people, the profit. Behind them, crates are unloaded, stamped with symbols from cities you've never seen. The future, it seems, has arrived uninvited. You stand apart, watching. The air smells of smoke and oil instead of dust and sage. The old rhythm of hoofbeats and wagon wheels fades beneath the hiss of steam. Even the silence feels different now. Shorter, shallower, no longer wild. The sheriff appears beside you, hat pulled low. He doesn't look impressed. Progress, he mutters, spitting into the dirt. Always shows up too late for the ones who built the place. You watch a boy run alongside the train, eyes wide, trying to keep pace until the wheels outspin him. His laughter echoes through the air, bright and brief. The whistle blows again, deep and lonely, before the train lurches forward and disappears into the horizon. When the smoke clears, the town looks smaller somehow, like the world just outgrew it. The saloon, the church, the general store, all seem to lean a little closer to the tracks, as if waiting for something they can't name. You turn to leave, dust rising beneath your boots. The West you've known is changing. The silence that once meant freedom now feels like a pause before it's gone forever. And in the distance, faint but steady, the whistle sounds again, reminding you that time moves even here, whether the land's ready or not. A week after the train's first arrival, another sound joins the plains. Faint clicking from a small wooden shack near the tracks. The telegraph has come. It speaks in code, short bursts of metal and rhythm, words traveling faster than horses ever could. You stand outside, watching the operator work. He's a young man, neat hair, city coat, tapping the key with the confidence of someone who's never slept in the dirt. Each click carries news, messages, orders, all invisible, all instant. The rest of the town watches too, half curious, half unsettled. In the West, distance has always meant safety. Now it's gone. News of deaths, debts, and fortunes travels across hundreds of miles in minutes. Secrets don't stay buried long when the wire hums day and night. The operator glances up, smiling politely. They say it's the future, he says. Connects everyone coast to coast. He looks proud when he says it, as if he built the country himself. You just nod, eyes on the thin wire that stretches across the horizon like a scar. Later, walking along the line, you notice how it hums in the wind. The poles cast long shadows over the plains, straight and endless. Birds perch on them for a moment, then lift away, restless, like they can sense something unnatural in the stillness. You remember the way things used to sound. Wind through grass, the slow creak of a wagon, the steady thud of hooves. Now there's a new rhythm, one made of metal and electricity. It doesn't breathe, it pulses. Back in town, the saloon is quieter these days. Men sit near the stove, listening as the operator calls out snippets of news from faraway places. Gold rushes, wars, elections, things that feel too distant to matter, but somehow reach even here. You take a sip of coffee gone cold and realize the truth. The frontier isn't shrinking because of time. It's shrinking because the silence that once defined it now has a voice, and it won't stop talking. A month after the telegraph came, another stranger arrived. A man with a wagon full of glass plates and chemicals that smelled like thunder. He called himself a photographer, said he was traveling west to capture the last untamed faces before they vanish. You watch him set up his tripod on the edge of town. The camera, a black box on spindly legs, a heavy cloth draped over the top. He moves carefully, like a man handling ghosts. The townsfolk gather around, half wary, half curious. Most have never seen a photograph made before. He calls for the sheriff first. "You'll stand still now, sir," the man says gently, arranging his subject like a painter. "Don't blink. Don't breathe." The sheriff obliges, his hand resting on the butt of his revolver, face calm but proud. When the flash goes off, the whole crowd gasps. The moment is caught forever. 1 second of life, frozen in silver and smoke. Next, he photographs the blacksmith, the school teacher, the barkeep, the preacher, even the children, lined up by the church steps, trying to look serious as the camera hums. You stand apart, watching how each person stiffens before the lens, as if facing judgment. That night, the photographer invites you to his tent behind the saloon. Inside, lantern light glows red through a thin sheet. He slides one of the glass plates into a tray, and slowly the image appears. A faint shape, a ghost forming from nothing. It's eerie, beautiful, and wrong all at once. He holds the plate up to the light, studying it. "Funny thing," he murmurs. "You can catch a face, but not the sound of it. Not the breath, not the heat." He sets it down gently, his eyes tired. "By the time I finish this journey, the West won't look like this anymore." Outside, the wind shifts, and the church bell tolls in the dark. You step into the cool air and glance toward the horizon. For the first time, it feels smaller. Every picture he takes preserves what's already fading. Proof that even the wildest places eventually learn to pose for memory. Spring comes late to the plains. The snow melts into rivers that cut through the dirt roads, and the air smells briefly of wet grass before the wind dries it all again. That's when the first rolls of barbed wire arrive, thin coils of metal that change everything. A rancher down the road is the first to try it. You watch as he strings the wire between cedar posts, stretching it taut until it sings in the breeze. The metal glints sharp under the sun, cruel and efficient. Within days, his land is fenced tight, neat and claimed. At first, no one thinks much of it, just another invention from back east, another way to keep cattle from wandering. But soon, the fences spread, mile by mile, ranch by ranch, until the open range begins to vanish. The cowhands curse it, cuts horses, cuts men. One spits, holding up a palm striped with fresh scars. The farmers defend it. "Keeps what's mine, mine," they say. Out here, possession isn't about paper or title. It's about who's willing to fight for their boundary. By summer, arguments turn to gunfire. Neighbors who once shared water and pasture now stare across wire like enemies, divided by war. The sound of hammering fence posts echoes across the valley, day and night, steady, final, unstoppable. You ride along one of the new fences at dusk. It stretches to the horizon, slicing the land into pieces too small for its silence. A tumbleweed snags on the wire, twisting helplessly until it tears apart. You stop and watch it for a moment, feeling something similar tug in your chest. Barbed wire didn't just tame the West, it trapped it. The endless freedom that once defined the plains now ends at every post. The sky is still wide, but the ground beneath it belongs to someone else. As the sun sets, the fence hums softly in the wind, each barb catching the light like a spark. You realize it's not just the land that's been divided, it's the people too, and the sound of that wire singing is the sound of the wild dying quietly, inch by inch. By midsummer, another voice joins the chorus of change, the printed kind. The town's first newspaper presses its ink into the morning air, its smell drifting down Main Street like smoke. The sign above the door reads, "The Frontier Gazette," hand-painted, proud, and just a little uneven. Inside, the editor works in a haze of paper dust and noise. The press clatters and sighs with each turn, heavy with stories that travel faster than truth. Headlines scream about railroads, politics, outlaws, and fortune. Half of it rumor, half of it wish. In a place where silence once ruled, now every whisper has weight. You pick up a copy, still damp with ink. The front page tells of a shootout 2 towns over, a mining strike, a preacher arrested for theft. Beneath it all, a small column titled "Births and Deaths, Life and Loss" printed in the same breath. People gather outside the Gazette each morning now. Ranchers, shopkeepers, even drifters. They read aloud to one another, voices overlapping in disbelief and laughter. For the first time, the town feels connected to something larger, something it can't see, but can suddenly name. But not everyone welcomes the change. The sheriff grumbles that news brings trouble quicker than horses. The bartender says it's made people restless, comparing their lives to others instead of tending their own. Still, the paper sells out every issue. You watch the editor at work, sleeves rolled, eyes sharp. "History's being written faster than we can live it," he says, setting a new page to press. "If we don't print it, someone else will." That night, the sound of the press echoes long after the lamps go out. It's rhythmic, relentless, a new kind of heartbeat pulsing through the West. You unfold your copy again by lantern light. The words smudge beneath your fingers, faint but alive. Somewhere between the lines, you realize what's changing isn't just the world. It's the way people remember it. Out here, stories used to die with the tellers. Now they live on in ink. And ink, unlike memory, doesn't fade so easily. Autumn creeps in quietly, carrying the smell of dry grass and smoke. The trails that once pulsed with cattle drives and wagon trains now lie still. Ruts fading under weeds. You ride them anyway, following grooves that once led to promise. Now they lead to fences, towns, and signs that say private property. The old trails were the arteries of the West. Dusty, dangerous, alive. Every wagon wheel that passed carved a little more story into the earth. But now, the wagons are gone. The cowhands work smaller ranges. The wide-open herds have thinned to almost nothing. You pass an abandoned camp at sunset. Rusted pots, a broken stirrup, ash scattered like memory. You can still feel the ghosts of motion here. The laughter of men who believed they were chasing forever. At a river bend, you stop to water your horse. The banks have changed since you first crossed them. Barbed wire cuts the horizon. A bridge of rough planks now stands where you once forded knee-deep water. A boy rides past on a bicycle, a strange, fragile thing of metal and rubber. Proof that even the wilderness is learning to move differently. As night falls, you make camp for old time's sake. The stars still burn where they always have, but the silence between them feels thinner somewhere far off. You hear a train whistle echo through the dark, its rhythm steady, its purpose certain. You realize the trail you've followed, your whole life doesn't really end. It just fades, like a road erased by wind. Maybe that's the truest ending the frontier ever gets. Not a final line, but a slow vanishing. You lie back against your saddle, the fire crackling low. The smell of pine and ash fills the air. The West isn't dying tonight. It's changing shape, learning how to stand still after centuries of running. Tomorrow, you'll ride again, though you don't know where. Maybe that's the last thing the trail teaches. Not how to arrive, but how to keep moving long after the world stops asking you to. Winter returns with a different kind of quiet, the kind that doesn't threaten, just lingers. The town still stands, but it feels hollow now. Its edges softened, its heartbeat slower. The saloon opens fewer nights each week. The blacksmith's forge stays cold more often than it burns. The sound of hammer and laughter has faded into the wind. You walk down the main street at dusk. Snow drifts lightly through the air, landing on rooftops that once shook with music and gunfire. The sheriff's badge still hangs in his office, though its shine has dulled to gray. He's an old man now, sitting by the window, staring at nothing in particular. You nod as you pass. He doesn't wave back, but he doesn't have to. Out here, silence is greeting enough. Even the church bell seems hesitant when it rings, its voice thin and cracked. The preacher left months ago. They say he went east, where the railroads hum and the cities never sleep. Most folks who stayed behind don't bother asking where anyone's gone anymore. The answers are all the same. Someplace easier, someplace newer. You stop by the general store, half-empty shelves lined with dust. The owner smiles faintly as you buy a tin of coffee. Won't be ordering more, he says. Train don't stop here much these days. His words hang in the air, soft and final. Outside, the snow deepens. You walk past the telegraph office, dark now, wires silent. The wind hums through them, like an echo of what once was. In the distance, a lone coyote cries, and for a moment, the sound fills the whole town. You stand in the middle of the street, watching your breath rise into the cold. The West hasn't vanished. It's just grown quiet enough for you to hear its pulse again. Slow, steady, fading into something like peace. The lanterns flicker. The wind carries the scent of pine and smoke. And as the night settles, you understand what all the years have been leading toward. Not conquest, not gold, not survival, just this quiet, the kind that only comes after everything wild has finally learned to rest. Evening stretches long across the plains, the light slow and golden, soft as breath. You ride to the edge of town one last time, where the land opens wide and empty, untouched by fences or fire. The wind carries that old familiar scent. Dust, sage, wood smoke, and somewhere beneath it, the faint sweetness of grass returning after winter. You dismount and walk a while, boots pressing new prints into the same earth that's carried generations. The sun hangs low, a deep red coin sinking into the horizon. Everything glows. The mountains, the dry grass, even the wire fences catch the light like veins of gold. In the distance, the train passes, its whistle low and mournful. The sound blends with the wind until it feels less like machinery and more like memory, a reminder that the world keeps moving, even when no one's left to watch it. You think about everything this land has seen, the riders and wanderers, the builders and the broken, all of them chasing something they could never quite catch. You remember the hunger, the storms, the dust, the fire. You remember the laughter too, the rare kind that meant survival, not joy. When you look back toward town, smoke curls gently from a few chimneys. Children's voices echo faintly across the still air. The West isn't gone. It's simply quieter now, older, settled, remembering itself. The wildness hasn't died. It's just sleeping beneath the soil, waiting for someone to listen again. You sit down in the grass, feeling the earth's slow heartbeat under your palm. The sky fades from orange to violet to deep blue. Stars appear, one by one, patient as ever. Somewhere far away, the telegraph line hums faintly in the cold, still carrying words between places that used to be worlds apart. As darkness folds over the plains, you close your eyes. The wind moves gently through the grass, whispering the same old song. It's always sung, of distance, of silence, of time. The last light slips below the edge of the world, and for a moment, everything, the dust, the memory, the dream of the West, glows together in the soft quiet between day and night. Then it's gone, and peace, at last, returns to the land.